And tell us a little bit about what have been the ups and downs this year. What are the things that have been the struggle, and what are some of the things that you've really had some success with this year?
Well, I have to start off with my team and Mr. Lape. They've been huge supporters, and we work great as a team. And if we didn't have our community as a team, it would be a huge struggle this year. So we've really worked together. We've found things that have worked, things that haven't worked. It's been really fun and challenging to find what's best for our learners, and not so much what's best for us anymore, but really putting our learners in front. And it's been really fun just to see them take charge of their learning, take control of what they're doing, and really drive their own instruction and come to us for help that they need as well. Some of the challenges are, I would say the biggest challenge is keeping all the learners on pace, keeping track of them and where they're at in their learning, and just making sure that we're meeting them where they need to be met. That's been a challenge for us, but we've had a bunch of different avenues that we've went to try to fix those problems, and so that's a challenge that I feel like we'll always face, but as long as we're meeting each learner where they need to be met and having conferences with them daily, we should be set to go in that area.
Oh, good. We'll come back to the pacing in a minute, but I'll start with the team part that you brought up. You've got 4 teachers, and about how many students is it? There
are 93 learners.
93 learners.
Yep.
So with this group, you don't necessarily have a small group of kids that are your own. It's kind of 4 of you responsible for a larger group of kids. How does that work? Has it been interesting going from the traditional to this style of? Very
much. Yeah. Having your own classroom, you get to know the learners very well in a small group of learners. We still have home studios, so I have a home of 21 learners, but it's been so fun getting to know the other learners, because in the first grade classroom or second grade, you might not get to know the 4th and 5th graders as well. And this year, I've got to know 93 learners really well, and I get to see all of them in the studio, so it's a lot of fun. And it's so much more enjoyable getting to meet all of the different learners and getting to know them than just a set few of them.
How's that been then from a collaboration standpoint with your other colleagues then? You know, traditionally we tend to be in isolation when we're in our classrooms. How is that different here?
It's a lot different. Us 4 facilitators in the EPIC program have our own little area where we can collaborate there. I still collaborate with the 2nd grade teachers in our school just to kind of keep on track, make sure I'm headed where I'm headed, as well as the 3rd grade teachers to know kind of what's going on there as well. So it's been tight work within our group, but then it's also fun to expand into the other teachers and see what they're doing and see if we can incorporate some of our techniques into their learning as well.
Okay. Now, when you talked about the kids being at their own pace and that, how do you determine a kid what they need, how the students, where they're at as far as their learning in a particular content area? How do you kind of figure that out?
We take a baseline assessment, especially in math on Skills Navigator and the NUIA. We take a baseline assessment, know where they enter in at, where their gaps are at that need to be filled. And we start by filling in the gaps and then moving forward with them. And we have a bunch of different mastery checks, artifacts where the learners show us what they know and what they're learning. And if they need help, we have different coaching sessions or seminars that we offer. And our students do a great job of communicating what they need, and we're able to really tell where they're at and then take off from there.
So how do you plan a day in this kind of environment? Normally you think of, well, this period I'm going to teach this, and then this period I'm going to teach that. How do you plan for a day now? We plan pretty much day by day because it's what the learners need and what's best for them. We collaborate as 4 facilitators for our reading blocks, and so our learners kind of rotate in and out. We have a 4-week rotation. So I have the same learners for a week, and we go through like mystery this week, and they get to learn mystery with me, and then they go to another facilitator. So we still have our reading blocks, we still have recess and our math block, and then it's kind of in the afternoon, it's personalizing social studies and science within our communities, and we're starting learner interest groups where the learners get to choose different areas that they're interested in, and then we bring in outside sources, people from the community that really tackle their interest needs, and it's a fun way for our learners to not only get involved with the community but learn a little bit more about different aspects. So when you said like you're doing mystery and then you rotate after a week, so you've got 2nd through 5th grade 2nd through 5th, kids, and they're all working on mysteries at that point? At their own level.
Yep, so they get to choose which studio they go in. They just have to hit all 4 within the 4-week rotation. And so I have 2nd through 5th graders in my studio, and I meet the 2nd graders where they individually need to be met at with their reading levels and the words that they're working on, as well as 5th grade too.
Okay. How does that work with mix of, you know, I think most of us are used to the 8th grade, 8-year-olds are over here, the 9-year-olds are over here. How does that work, having a mix of that age?
It's so fun though. Like, you get to see 2nd graders become best friends with 5th graders, and they don't really know or don't really care what age level they are, but they can help each other. They can work together in groups, and I mean, as long as you're meeting them at their level, they're able to work with a partner. And it can be a different book, it can be the same concept, as long as they're working together. It's really cool to see.
So people from who've looked from the outside in on this, they look at this and say, well, it's like we're going back to the one-room classroom again. Is that really what we're talking about here, or how is it different?
It's different in the fact that we can flow between the 4 studios, and if I'm working with a learner and it's taken them a little while and they still don't understand the concept, just a scene of a change of scenery, just the way another facilitator might express the idea, the learner might catch on and might just click that much. So we've really seen that in math and reading as well, where if I have a learner in my studio and they're not understanding the concept, I can float them over to another facilitator. They can have a couple coaching sessions, a few conversations with them, and something that they say might really click with the learner, where they can move forward on that. So the flow of that, having more than just the one classroom, is huge for us. But I mean, I don't know. Cut that part out.
Yeah, actually, you don't have to worry. When we set these up, we set it up where the person can click on it and they'll hear from here to here, and so on. So
perfect.
With your kids having this flow that you were talking about, you know, I think in a traditional classroom we have a lot of grouping of students, differentiation going on, but I think one of the things we often see there is kids kind of get tracked. Now they're stuck in the low group versus the high group. It appears that you've got more of a flexible kind of grouping going on. Can you tell me more about how that looks, and how do you handle this flexible grouping?
Yeah, it is really flexible because the learners can go in and out of different groups. We don't tag them as the low learners, the middle learners, the high learners, anything like that. We're able to just meet them at where they are. And so for like our math, we have it up on the board and learners can see exactly where every learner is at, and they get to kind of group themselves as well. If they have another learner that's working on the same concept, they get to work with that learner, and it's not a big competition because they know it's not a race to the end. We have the curriculum and continuum all lined up, and the learners can see that, so they see where they're moving along. So it's not only us grouping them or having one-on-one or small coaching sessions, but the learners actually taking charge and grouping themselves as well.
So in some ways then the students can find their own partners?
Correct. Yep.
How do you keep from the, well, I'm just going to hang with my friends kind of thing?
Yep. Well, we check in with them often. I mean, the idea of all the learners working at their own levels keeps them on pace because it's in their zone of proximal development where we're meeting them where they are, so it's not too challenging and it's not too easy for them. And also the idea that I'm not standing in front of the class, or I'm not just working with one group. I work with multiple groups all day long. If I'm not with the group and learners don't need a coaching session, I'm able to go and bounce around and meet with every group too.
So in your previous teaching, you were more 2nd and 3rd grade, is that? 1st
grade actually, for the first 3 years, yep.
So how has this been for a stretch when you're working with content of older kids now? I mean, how do you handle now needing to be responsible for a wider range of content than just a grade level? Yeah,
it was a big enough jump going from 1st to 2nd, but now to 5th too. I've had to teach myself some things that I learned back in college and, you know, going into it. Like measurement, we're doing volume and mass, and it's a whole change for me from measuring with a ruler to measuring with volume and talking about grams and milliliters. So I have to teach myself before I teach them. And, you know, we have the idea all set up and all ready to go, because if our learners are ready to move on, we have to be ready at any given day too. So it's been a lot of outside work on that.
I bet. It sounds like this has been a lot of work, putting this together and making it happen. But what makes it worth it?
It's just watching the learners succeed, watching them, you know, move forward. And some of the concepts that I would have taught in a gen ed classroom, it would take in a month or 2 months according to the old curriculum, where now it might take a learner a day or two, it might take another learner 2 weeks on that. So the idea where you actually see the success and the excitement in the learners and watch them achieve their goals and move from one thing to the next is so fun. And the way that the learners respond to it and how they take charge of it, it makes it all worth it.
What about the kid that's not very motivated? Just doesn't really...
We don't have any of those. That's been our toughest battle, is keeping those learners motivated. Finding what they're interested in and applying that to their learning has really been helpful to us. Having them sit up by us or the flexible seating might give them a little bit of a head start on kind of getting the ball rolling. That's our biggest balance. That's what we're working on, is trying to get those learners motivated. And the learners that they take a little longer to do things, it's a little slower for them. The idea isn't to rush them along, to let them go at their own pace, but to just check in constantly and make sure they're where they need to go. We still have some soft deadlines just so we don't have those lingering in the back and kind of sliding under the radar. So do you have as equal a problem for kids who are going way too fast, per se? I mean, where they're just zipping through material? Sure. We do have learners that are just cruising through, but our idea isn't to cruise them through it, but to dig deeper into the topics. So like reading, digging deeper, finding more concepts to pull out of their math, applying it to real life situations, and doing projects where they're learning about things that they're interested in, as well as a concept that we're working on.